Hello world, welcome to another episode from Championship Mode Collective. This time under the Staying in Championship Mode series. If you're joining us here for the first time, thank you. Please hit the subscribe button. The subscriber count keeps going up. We're at 122, so thank you to everyone that has subscribed. If you've been here before, you know how we do. You know what we're about. You know what we talk about. So let's jump in. Today, we're discussing a topic that in previous years has not gotten a lot of attention, but recently has started getting a lot of attention. Basically, failure and how to sort of like learn from the failure to set yourself up for success. Now, this was inspired from a previous episode I did, 5 Steps to Be More Consistent, where I talk about embracing a break in your consistency. So that got me thinking. I was like, how do I deal with failure? And is it different from how other people deal with failure and bounce back? So I wanted to do like a quick expose in terms of like how I deal with failure and what I think is sort of like the best way to go through it, and get your feedback, get your comments in terms of how you guys deal with failure as well. So here we are. Let's dive in. So failure, basically setting a goal, a target, an achievement that you want to reach over a time period and failing to get that achievement that you had stated, right? Now, this can happen due to many reasons, right? Basically breaking up into like 2 segments, things you can control and things you can't control, right? So things you can control will be like your effort, your time that you give, and things you can't control will be like if it's a performance review and it's up to someone else. Here, we're focused on what we can control, and I broke it up into 5 parts, as usual. So let's get to it. Give yourself space to feel and reflect. What does that mean? Basically, when we sort of like get into that disappointment of a failure, we shut down, or we sort of like want to get back into it like double time, right? But the idea is to say, give yourself space, give yourself time to feel, to reflect on what went well, to reflect on what went wrong, to reflect on where you could be better. Because what happens is, if you shut down, then you sort of like lose motivation. And also, if you want to get back to it real quickly, you haven't taken into account your experience and what you've learned, and you end up doing the same thing anyways, right? For example, if you're setting yourself up for a promotion at work and you don't get the promotion, right? What you need to do is speak to the people around you, ask them, what do you think? What happened? Also have a reflection on your performance, right? In terms of saying, how did I do? Did this go well? Did this not go well? What could I have done better, right? Reassess your plan and your effort. Now that the emotions are out of the way, you can sit down and critically think about the effort that you gave your goal, and basically what went well, what could you have done better, even better ifs, right? So similar to the first step, but this was more sort of like focused on the review part. Now that we've dealt with the emotional part, right? Bring other people in that saw the process, ask them, get their perspective, and from that you can sort of like pick the gaps that happened, what you can do better in your next attempt if you want to give it another attempt, that is. Now that you've reviewed your experience and you've constructively gone through the feedback, use these new pieces of information to revamp your plan. What does this mean? You now understand what you did really well. You now understand what could have gone better. You now understand the things you didn't even consider, right? Now you can use all those pieces, sit down, review it, and look at your plan and say, okay, what can I do better? And then revamp your plan, right? Put new things in. For example, if you still want to go for that promotion at work, for example, you've taken people's feedback in. Oh, Emmanuel, we think you did this really well. However, you didn't have an opportunity to lead a team, or you didn't have an opportunity to lead a work stream, so we're not really sure about your credentials. as a manager, for example, right? And then it's up to me to sit down to be like, okay, how do I make this happen? I need to find the exposure, I need to find the project, what is expected of a manager, and I start pulling in these pieces of information, and then I have a plan that's revamped, and I'm like, okay, boom, let's go, right? The plan is now better from your previous attempt, because if you don't change your plan, you can't expect the outcome to change. It means you're stagnating, and you have to think outside of the box. Now, what I really like about the first 3 steps is they can all happen in one single step, right? For example, give yourself space to feel your feels. After that, sit down, critically evaluate your attempt, what went wrong, get feedback from people around you, and use that to come up with a better plan, right? What happens next is you now need to build routine and flexibility into your new game plan, right? Now, you won't be 100% during your attempt at your goal or your target, right? Life happens. Sometimes we're not grand and, we just can't show up, right? But the 2 things that can help you show up, even in the worst cases, is build a routine and also create flexibility in your routine. What this means is, maybe give yourself 1 or 2 weeks to get back into track. Maybe put things in your calendar to figure out when you're going to be really busy in your life, and then you can be like, okay, cool, let's move a couple of things around, and you can preempt that, and you know where your effort must go, right? Routine, flexibility, really important. It helps us stay on our game when we can't be the best at the game. And I mean, applying that concept to going for a promotion, for example, right? There's more than one way to get it, right? So for example, if you want to become a manager, as I'm trying to do at work, right? There's 3 or 4 things that I need to focus on, right? Leading a work stream, leading a team, becoming an expert in something, understanding managerial excellence in terms of like operational excellence, risk excellence, commercial excellence, right? And all of these are like different ways to get the manager case, and that's the flexibility, right? So now what happens is I just need to come up with a plan, figure out what I want to prioritize, and then I can come up with a routine. After reflecting, after reassessing, after revamping your game plan, all that's left to do is for you to try again. Now, you have to be intentional and remember what you've learned in the first 4 steps. Also keep in mind that you have to be adaptable, you have to be resilient, and you have to be consistent as you move towards your target, right? And with patience, you will eventually achieve mastery and increase your chances of success. In my case, I've learned my gaps over the last few years in terms of like my performance at work. I've asked people their feedback, I've understood my experience and revamped my plan to make sure I get that manager case right. But the one extra thing I'm doing is I'm asking people how they made their manager case. I'm asking people in the leadership for their support, because it's like, okay, cool. If we have one shot at this, how do we make it the best possibility, right? Revamping my plan, understanding my experience, building flexibility, because there's one way to get it done, right? And now all that's left is to execute. Stay tuned to Championship Mode Collective to see how my manager case turns out. Stay in championship mode.